Americans.
You might be wondering, why in the world is there a 30-minute countdown before the show starts? Well, we actually start live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, so this whole 30-minute countdown is a chance for YouTube and Rumble to send out their alerts and notifications, so we encourage you to gather up and hang out with everyone in the chat room. So every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time is when we do this show live. You can join us for the countdown if you like, or just set your clock and reminder that at 4 p.m. Eastern is when we go live. You can also make sure you subscribe and turn on that bell notification, so hopefully you will get a notification.
What do you have to say about dictators of countries like Indonesia, who we sell weapons to, yet they are slaughtering people in East Timor? What do you have to say about Israel, who is slaughtering Palestinians, who impose martial law? What do you have to say about that? Those are our allies. Why do we sell weapons to these countries? Why do we support them? Why do we bomb Iraq when it commits similar problems?
There are various examples of things that are not right in this world, and the United States is trying. I really am surprised that people feel that it is necessary to defend the rights of Saddam Hussein, when what we ought to be thinking about is how to make sure that he does not use weapons of mass destruction.
I'd like to...
Who are shouting? Just a moment.
I'm not defending them in the least. What I am saying is that there needs to be consistent application of U.S. foreign policy. We cannot support people who are committing the same violations because they are political allies. That is not acceptable. We cannot violate UN resolutions when it is convenient to us. You're not answering my question, Madam Albright.
You briefed the press, did you not, when you were there?
Well, I had several jobs. One of my jobs was that of analyst. I also was an interrogator and indeed briefed the press when we, the CIA, wanted to circulate disinformation on a particular issue. Disinformation is not necessarily a lie. It may be a half-truth. And we would pick out a journalist. I would go do the briefing and hope that he would put the information in print.
What was your percentage of success?
We were pretty successful in planning information of a rather rarefied nature. For instance, if we wanted to get across to the American public that the North Vietnamese were building up their force structure in South Vietnam, I would go to a journalist and advise him that in the past 6 months, X number of North Vietnamese forces had come down the Ho Chi Minh Trail system through southern Laos. Now, there is no way a journalist can check that information. That's data derived from radio intercepts, spy in the sky photography. So either he goes with the information or he doesn't, and ordinarily or usually the journalist would go with it because it looked like some kind of exclusive. Go after these gentlemen. I would be directed to cultivate them, to spend time with them at the Caravel Hotel or the Continental Hotel, to socialize with them, and slowly but surely to try to gain their confidence by dolloping out valid information which was true. And then I would drop into a conversation the data that we wanted to get across which might not be true. One piece of data, for instance, that we managed to plant in the New Yorker magazine had to do with a supposed North Vietnamese effort in 1973 to develop airfields along the border of South Vietnam. The reason we wanted to plant this information was that we were trying to persuade the U.S. Congress that Saigon should continue to get a great deal of aid, and that the North Vietnamese were the chief violators of the ceasefire accord. That was printed in the New Yorker magazine under the byline of Robert Chaplin, as indeed was a great deal of such information which we tried to circulate.
Frank, a two-part question. What were the objectives of or what was the objective of the CIA? What about the moral implications of what you were doing in feeding disinformation? Did the objective override the moral implications, moral problems?
Well, the objective of the agency in general is to generate intelligence and get it back to Washington, to get at the truth and make sure the policymakers understand it. When you plant disinformation, you are diverging from that objective, and I think probably in retrospect, it was very counterproductive. I am, as an ex-CIA agent, opposed to the disinformation activities in which I was involved. I admit that I was involved, and I think it served no useful purpose. Propagandizing the American public or Congress is not the CIA's job. As to the morality of what the CIA was doing or that particular activity, the war was a very relative thing. It was a relativist environment, and morality seldom came into play when you were operating in the field. In my estimation, a CIA man should be amoral. That may sound pretty shocking to somebody, but what if my morality were that of a Nazi agent, if you will? You wouldn't want me to be your intelligence officer. Keep the morals out of intelligence. Keep the truth in, and stay away from disinformation.
It would have been more appropriate for Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, to address this House according to Article 144, an article which was specifically designed to debate violations of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, which is clearly the case with Mr. Trudeau. Then again, a Prime Minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
Colleagues, but the answer to war is not more war, it's peace. And peace isn't delivered by the barrel of a gun, it's delivered by diplomacy, by dialogue. You can wish away your continent's history, but we share a continent with Russia. We will sit down with Russia. There will be a negotiated peace, and this organization should be promoting it earlier rather than delaying it and making sure that more Ukrainians die. Your feigning of sympathy rings hollow. It makes me sick, to be honest with you.
we become involved when disinformation poses a threat to the security of our country. It is when there's a connectivity to a threat to our country. It could be a threat, connectivity to violence. And what this working group does, is precisely what I would think you would want it to do, which is to take a look at the work, the disinformation work that our department has done and ask the following questions. Do we have policies? Do we have guardrails? Do we have standards?
But here's the
to
problem.
ensure-
We can't
If I
even
may just
agree. We can't even
explain
agree what disinformation is.
This is-
You
well-
can't even agree that it was disinformation, that the Russians fed information to the Steele dossiers. You can't agree to that. How are we ever going to come to an agreement on what is disinformation so you can police it on social media?
Senator, I have 2 points, if I may finish. Number one, that what this office, what this working group does, because it's not an office, what this working group does is ensure that there are guardrails, definitions, standards to make sure that the free speech rights, the civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy rights of individuals
So
are
do you
not
think
impinged.
do you think
Number
COVID
one.
do you think
And
COVID
number
do you think
two,
COVID
if I may,
do you think COVID disinformation threatens our national security?
And number two, if I may, Senator, and number two, is it your proposition that when the cartels spread disinformation with respect to our immigration policies to try to lure vulnerable migrants to our border illegally?
I think you've got no idea what disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government. Are you familiar with McNamara, the Pentagon Papers? Are you familiar with George W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction? Are you familiar with Iran-Contra? I mean, think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country. We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want you guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech. You think we can't determine, speech by traffickers is disinformation? You think the American people are so stupid they need you to tell them what the truth is? You can't even admit what the truth is with the Steele dossier. I don't trust government to figure out what the truth is. Government is largely disseminating disinformation.
Hey everyone, just as a reminder, our show starts at 4 p.m. Eastern time, just a few minutes from now, but I should remind you that we have a daily newsletter. It's totally free. Natalie and I work very hard on it every morning over a cup of coffee, putting the stories together that we think are important that the mainstream media is going to ignore. All you need to do is go to our website. It's just redacted.inc. Put in your email address. We won't ever sell your email to anybody. And then you'll receive a welcome email. And all you need to do is verify that email, and 7 a.m. Eastern time is when we send out our daily newsletter. And it's about 5 or 10 minutes in length that you can read it over your cup of coffee. And like I said, we cover 4 or 5 of the big stories of the day, plus a couple of things you might have missed while you were sleeping. We try to have some fun with it, add a little humor into it. And again, it's a great way to start off your morning. But it's also a great way for us to stay connected with you as well, because we've been banned and blocked on some of these platforms before, where we haven't been allowed to post anything, not even a community post. So the only way for us to stay connected with you is through our newsletter. We were able to send out a newsletter and say, hey everyone, we're blocked for the next week, and let you know what was actually going on with our show. Anyway, go to redacted.inc and sign up for the free newsletter, and it'll be posted first thing in the morning over your cup of coffee.
This is a bit of an aside, but in terms of how you think about problem sets, when I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire We had entire training courses.
We had a good discussion on ensuring global energy security and adequate oil supplies to support global economic growth, and that will begin shortly. I'm doing all I can to increase the supply for the United States of America, which I expect to happen. The Saudis share that urgency, and based on our discussions today, I expect we'll see further steps in the coming weeks.
Are you worried about it?
One of the hopeful things that I've discovered is that nearly every war that has started in the past 50 years has been a result of media lies. The media could have stopped it if they had searched deep enough. If they hadn't reprinted government propaganda, they could have stopped it. But what does that mean? Well, that means basically populations don't like wars. And populations have to be fooled into wars. Populations don't willingly and with open eyes go into a war. So if we have a good media environment, then we'll also have a peaceful environment.
Killed a million people in Iraq.
That is a separate...
You killed a million people in Iraq. It's incredible that you have the brass neck to be sitting here now urging another Iraq war.
George,
after
if
what
I
you've
was
already
still in
done.
Parliament, I...
There can be no doubt that Saddam Hussein has biological weapons and the capability to rapidly produce more, many more. And he has the ability to dispense these lethal poisons and diseases in ways that can cause massive death and destruction. If biological weapons seem too terrible to contemplate, chemical weapons are equally chilling. UNMOVIC already laid out much of this, and it is documented for all of us to read in UNSCOM's 1999 report on the subject. If we consider just one category of missing weaponry, 6,500 bombs from the Iran-Iraq war, UNMOVIC says the amount of chemical agent in them would be in the order of 1,000 tons. These quantities of chemical weapons are now unaccounted for. Dr. Blick says, quipped that, quote, mustard gas is not marmalade. You are supposed to know what you did with it. We believe Saddam Hussein knows what he did with it, and he has not come clean to the international community. We have evidence these weapons existed. What we don't have is evidence from Iraq that they have been destroyed or where they are. That is what we are still waiting for.
Okay, inspection worth doing, everybody's agreed it's worth doing, and it gets stopped.
Yes, sir.
At that moment, we're an automatic pilot as far as you're concerned. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, I respect that. But now, it seems to me the Secretary of State might have a slightly different problem. Secretary of State might be sitting there and saying, now look over there, they're all the ones that said they didn't want to use force. Now, I'm going to have to go tell the President now that we should, or Secretary Cohen, unleash whatever it takes to get it done. And our military assessment is the same as the Major's. The Major's assessment is, privately held but publicly acknowledged later, that airstrikes alone aren't going to do this. Saddam's not going to cave on this. So, now here's the deal. I recommended the President have at it and let the chips fall where they may. A reasonable position for the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State to take. But I respectfully suggest, Major, I respectfully suggest they have a responsibility slightly above your pay grade. Slightly above your pay grade. To decide whether or not to take the nation to war alone, or to take the nation to war partway, or to take the nation to war halfway. That's a real tough decision. That's why they get paid the big bucks. That's why they get the limos and you don't. I mean this sincerely. I'm not trying to be flip, because I think, and that's why I said at the outset, the reason why I'm glad you did what you did, we should come to our milk. We should make a decision. But in terms of whether the Secretary of State has no more to consider than you do as the arms inspector, you didn't get in, didn't get my job done, get me in. Period. You made the deal, right? That's the deal. A deal's a deal. Get me in. Scott Ritter, I'm ready to go. It's not how it works. Now, maybe it should work that way. But wouldn't you acknowledge that if you were President of the United States or the Secretary of State, you'd sit there and say, now, okay, old Scotty boy didn't get in. We said he should get in. We want him to get in. It's important that he does get in. They're not going to let him in, so what are we going to do now? We know that France and Russia aren't going to be with us. We're quite confident China's not. We've already run those traps. They're not there. We're not sure where the United States Senate is, but have at it, boys. Go get them. And by the way, Scott and the boys say air power's not enough. I think it's a legitimate debate, Major. I think it's a legitimate debate. But I don't think we should be putting it in the context of, you have somebody up there at state saying, look, how can we weasel out of this agreement? We want to let this guy out there hanging. We're not this. It's a very practical political decision. Same kind of decision General Powell made. Same kind of decision President Bush made. Every president, every Secretary of State has to do it. Like I said, they get paid more than you. Their job's a hell of a lot more complicated than yours. They may have made the wrong decision, and you brought it to light. We should address it. We should say straight up where we are, and we should do it. And for that, I thank you. But it's above your pay grade.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon, and one of the generals called me and he said, sir, you got to come in and talk to me a sec. He says, we've made the decision we're going to war with Iraq. I said, we're going to war with Iraq? Why? He said, I don't know. He said, I guess they don't know what else to do. He said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper. He said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Hey everyone, Clayton here. The show is going to start at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I should remind you that we have a VIP community. It's our Redacted Rebel VIP community. Now, this show is totally free, what you're watching right now, right? You can subscribe here on YouTube and Rumble, totally free. But if you'd like to support independent journalism, we are run by you. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this show. We wouldn't be able to hire the team that we have. We wouldn't be able to afford the servers that we have. We wouldn't be able to afford the reporters that we have, the team that we have. So you can support us by going to redacted.inc, and on the right side of your screen, you'll see a VIP community button. Just click that, and for the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support us. We put out exclusive content, early interviews that no one else will see, live streams just for our VIP Rebel community. So again, it's totally free to watch this show. But if you do want to support independent journalism, we would really appreciate it. Come on over to redacted.inc, click on that community button, and decide if you want to sign up or not. It's totally up to you. We thank you. And meanwhile, the show will start in just a few moments at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Whatever our hopes may be for the future, for reducing this threat or living with it, there is no escaping either the gravity or the totality of its challenge to our survival and to our security. A challenge that confronts us in unaccustomed ways in every sphere of human activity. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the President. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Hey everybody, welcome into Redacted on this Tuesday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
So glad to be back after the holiday. I'm glad to be back in studio. So glad to see all of you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us here. Good to see all of our Redacted viewers yesterday in Berlin and this morning in Berlin. So many great folks there supporting the farmer protests, now the truckers protests in Berlin. So thank you guys for coming up and saying hello to me, and thanks to all of the farmers who are standing strong against this government tyranny. Hey, we've got a very busy show for you on this Tuesday.
Right, that story continues to develop, but we're not going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about who the heck is running the White House on the heels of the story we did yesterday about how the press is telling us that Biden is hell-bent marching into war, but who really is pulling the strings there? Because it's not that guy.
Yeah, and of course, Secretary Lloyd Austin, like what in the world is happening there, and why did it take so long for the Pentagon to notify the White House as to what was happening with the Secretary of Defense? But they're still able to like carry out bombing attacks around the world. So who is actually running this government now with Dementia Joe at the helm?
Plus, the agenda is out for Davos next week. What do you think they're going to talk about? I'm going to give you a clue. They have a new vaccine for a new unknown pandemic. That's one thing, plus a whole bunch of things that they're saying will rebuild their trust. So do you want to renew your trust in the Davos Global Unelected Elitist? We're going to look at the agenda. It's fun, I guess.
Also, we're going to look at these tunnels in New York City. What in the world is going on in Brooklyn and with these Jewish tunnels? Like what? Like I swear to God, it's already been a crazy 2024, and we're only just a few days into this year already. So we're going to look at these weird tunnels in New York City. What in the world is going on? Who's being kept down there? I mean, it's just a crazy freaking story. I'm glad to be back. Let's roll it.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Redacted starts right now.
I hope you're settled in for some news, ready to be cozy and talk about it because it's wild. You would know that if you read the Redacted newsletter that came out today. Yes, we are back from the holiday. You can find the free newsletter at redacted.inc. It is a summary of a lot of the stories we will talk about here on the show every day. It has, to the best of our ability, links to original sources, and it is totally free. There's nothing behind a paywall unless we link you to a source that has a paywall. We don't make money from that. There's nothing there where we upsell you or cross-sell you. We just like to be in touch with you. It helps if, if we're on vacation or if we're going to be out or if for some reason we get penalized on a platform, which does happen. It's a great way to stay in touch with you and also help you stay informed about the topics that we're going to talk about so that you can form your own opinion. When you get here, we don't care if you agree with us or not. We just care that you show up. Thank you so much for joining the Redacted Rebellion and being a subscriber to the newsletter. So again, please, totally free. Sign up your friends too. They like it. They will at redacted.inc.
The kids love it. So thank you guys so much. Great to see you all. And yeah, just a point of order here. Yes, people asking, what was it like in Berlin? It is freaking cold, by the way. And my heart goes out to those farmers who they're spending very, very cold nights there, and they're sleeping in their tractors. They've got portable generators set up. They've got beds, and if, to the best of their ability, they do. And it's just it's really difficult for them. So anyway, support the farmers, support the people that are standing up against these globalist
Well, I'm
elites.
curious, as we're talking about it, what do you think will happen? Do you think they will get an interaction with any government official? Do you think they'll be maligned the way Justin Trudeau maligned the truckers in Canada?
Well, they've already been calling them far right-wing extremists. They've been calling the farmers extremist farmers. Have you ever met like an extremist farmer? Maybe the one that goes after the Peter Cottontail or whatever, he's like angry about the rabbits.
Yes, but he's a gardener, not a farmer.
Yeah, but no, they're not extremists.
if my understanding was correct from the piece you did yesterday, they're fighting like that they can't afford to farm because of the prices they're paying for things, correct?
Right.
And that's what makes them extremists. That sounds pretty extreme to me.
Yeah.
I was like, they just want to work. They want to do their job. That's
they work
extreme.
hard. They work hard all day. They're like, literally, we're working so hard, we barely can make ends meet. You know, we're working just barely to keep the lights on. So they're breaking even constantly. And so that's extremist. They're coming to their government, the head of the government, and they're telling them, our fuel costs
with
are out of
sincere intentions.
Yeah. Anyway.
I just saw a tweet 10 minutes ago that German farmers told the Minister of Food and Agriculture to piss off when he was walking through the.
Yeah. Oh, good, because Habeck was, of course, on the ferry, and they managed to grab him, or not grab him, but distract him. Anyway, my thoughts are with the farmers there, and just keep it up, and they're going to keep it up, and they're not going anywhere.
And it does seem to be a protest that is snowballing now. We see movement in Poland. We see we see now truckers joining the rallies. So we're gonna. I don't know if rally is the right word because of the way that these words are weaponized against anyone that's an inconvenient narrative. Right?
I gotta say, it was amazing. It really was. I saw maybe 3 police officers in Berlin during this trucker and farmer protests. 3 police officers. There were a few more that came later, and there were just a few police trucks set up. That's it. It was incredibly peaceful. I mean, it was as peaceful of a protest as I've ever seen. And it was just quiet, and the police officers just stand there talking to the farmers.
Yeah.
I mean, so if people want to start painting people as being violent or extreme protesters, just, give them the middle finger, because they're full of shit.
The stinker finger.
They are full of shit is what they are when the media makes this up about them. All right, let's talk about it. By the way, while we were gone on vacation, we were away for the holiday, we have now turned $34 trillion in U.S. debt. Like in 3 months, the Biden administration has now run up the debt another $1 trillion. That's amazing. Way to go, Joe Biden. All right. So who is running the federal government? Who is running the executive branch of the government? That's a good question, because it sure as hell isn't President Joe Biden. I don't know if you've seen, the White House is now using Dr. Jill Biden as a mechanism to walk Joe Biden off stages at campaign events now. Did you see this? This is now the new, because they're tired of him he doesn't know where to go. He's just wandering around. So she has to come out and now escort him off the stage at events.
It's actually clever. They're probably like, why didn't we think of this before?
It's clever, but they think we're stupid.
Well, yes.
Like they think we don't get the mechanism here. They think we are stupid.
Yes.
That we don't understand what they're doing here. Of course we know what they're doing with using her for that reason.
They had to start using her because the Easter Bunny didn't work. So they're like, okay, we can't use the Easter Bunny anymore. We'll have to use somebody that,
Right.
Didn't he ignore the Easter Bunny too? Maybe they get like one of the topless trans people to show up on the White House lawn like they did before. So the White House is using Dr. Jill Biden as this mechanism now, and Democrats are now actively scrambling, of course, to find a replacement for the 2024 election, and they're getting very, very desperate. But beyond the most important proof of all that Biden isn't running, the executive branch, actually something that occurred just last week when we learned that Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin suddenly disappeared. Where the hell did Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin go? Not that I really care, but it's the holidays. They just get him out of there. No one in the White House knew where he was. Not even the President of the United States. As a reminder, by the way, American taxpayers pay over $800 billion a year to the Pentagon, to the deep state. That is where all of our money goes. Most, if not all of our money goes to this. So we should have full transparency, should we not? For what goes on at the Pentagon? But we don't. They lie to us on a regular basis, of course, and they can't, during their audits, even account for tens of billions of dollars. They can't account for it, but they can't even find their own Secretary of Defense, and they don't tell the White House where he is. The Pentagon press corps was also kept in the dark. No Pentagon reporters were given any information as to the whereabouts of the defense secretary.
Wouldn't it have been easy to just take a sick day? Just call in sick?
Well, if you would have gotten out in front of the story and just said, hey, Secretary of Defense is going in for elective surgery. This is what's about to happen. This would not be a story at all. But instead, 3 days before Christmas, on December 22nd, here's the timeline. Lloyd Austin goes to the hospital for an elective medical procedure, which we still don't know what that was. So that is December 22nd. Was it gender reassignment surgery? Did he
Which we know now the Pentagon does cover based on the February 2023 documents. Yeah.
Exactly.
Could have been.
Was it gender reassignment surgery? Did he add a vagina to his arsenal? The Pentagon budget.
Lolita.
Right. The Pentagon budget covers those procedures now for our troops at taxpayer expense. He's been, I think, quadruple vaccinated and led the charge for mandatory vaccines for our troops. Was it a complication from being filled with Pfizer chemicals? We simply don't know. We don't have any idea because they won't tell us what happened. So let's follow this timeline. So then that was December 22nd. Then he goes home on December 23rd. Now, remember, they still haven't told the White House at this point. His boss doesn't know anything about it. Then Austin starts experiencing severe pain, and he's rushed to the hospital on January 1st. So this timeline unfolds in a very interesting way because then he goes to an intensive care unit at Walter Reed. That's for dangerous, life-threatening care. Again, no one at the Pentagon told their bosses President Biden was going since his first hospitalization on December 22nd. So no one told him about this. No one told them anything about this. This is 11 days. No one's told the White House. You go, you come back, you go again, severe pain, no mention to the White House, no mention to your boss, where you are, with wars raging around the world. You're concerned about China. You're concerned about Putin. You're concerned about Israel. You're concerned about Hamas. You're concerned about Iran. You're concerned about Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. No mention, nothing. Now, this is where things get even more bizarre because during this timeline, Lloyd Austin didn't turn over control of the Pentagon to anyone else. Not his second in command, Kathleen Hicks, not anyone. Kathleen Hicks was on vacation at the time in Puerto Rico and didn't know anything about it. But during this time, while Austin was in the ICU, the United States military, this is what I find really fascinating, carried out multiple attacks on foreign countries and targets. So during this time, American forces were attacked in Syria and Iraq. During this time, Israeli forces, using American intelligence and American weapons, launched devastating attacks in Gaza, also coordinating attacks in Lebanon against Hezbollah. So who authorized these strikes?
Well, you know, Clayton, when you're a good manager, you just trust your team to keep on with the bombing.
Oh, okay.
You know, you're like, they're well trained now.
But it's not just
I feel
continuing.
very confident in my team.
I would agree with that. It's not just continuing on with this stuff. These are literally new attacks. We're launching airstrikes in Iraq.
Yeah.
Like we're starting. This is a new operation that we're carrying out against Iranian-backed targets.
You're a successful manager when you can outsource yourself.
When you don't even have to be there.
He's like,
yeah.
He's like, I don't want to be seen as a micromanager. So, you know.
Yeah.
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 I'm going to go off and try not to die, but I think that my marching orders will continue to be implemented.
So a day later, Congress then learns about it. Well, I'm sorry. Let me go back here a second. So who authorized all of this? Who was the person pulling the strings here? Which deep state member was pulling the strings? It just goes to show you that, of course, this all just flows the way it's going to flow from this timeline from December 22nd to December 23rd to January 1st, all the way up. No one knows where Lloyd Austin is. No one's telling anyone at the White House about where this was, what actually happened here. Then on January 4th, finally, the White House is notified. The U.S. carried out military strikes that Lloyd Austin didn't authorize. Who did? His second in command didn't authorize it. Kathleen Hicks was on vacation, so she didn't authorize it. The President of the United States is out to lunch and he's got dementia. So who the hell is running the government? January 4th, the White House finally learns about Austin's incapacitation. And a day later then, Congress finally learns about it and tells the American people about it. So Senator J.D. Vance says Austin should be fired immediately for this dereliction of duty. Listen.
Do you think it's time for Mr. Austin to resign? Biden apparently is not going to fire him. The question is, should Austin resign? Because a lot of this stuff comes from Austin's own office, which was, shall we say, miscalculating.
Look, he absolutely should resign. He should be fired by the President of the United States. And barring that, the Congress has to look into this. There are so many problems here, so many unanswered questions. Did we have a breakdown in our nuclear deterrence? Of course, the Secretary of Defense is a major part of that. We're now, 4 days where we haven't seen the Secretary of Defense. We should actually check in and make sure, God forbid, we don't have a weekend at Bernie's situation with the world's most powerful military. He should resign. This is disgraceful. Again, I've never seen anything like it, but beyond him resigning, Larry, we've got to have a very, very stark set of questions to the Biden administration about who's actually in charge over there. If you lose the Secretary of Defense for days, it suggests that the engine is running, but nobody's behind the wheel. That is the story of the Biden administration at a time of extraordinary chaos for the United States all across the world. It's a big, big problem.
This reminded me of one of my favorite books I've ever read called The President is a Sick Man, and wherein the supposedly virtuous Grover Cleveland, who was supposed to be this incredibly virtuous person who never ever lies, right, suddenly disappears in 1886, and no one knows where he is. And he has a mysterious, 1893, he has a mysterious jaw surgery on a ship in the ocean. No one knew where he was. And the press, and basically the White House was like lying to the American people, and the press was sort of asking about it and sniffing around about it. Turns out he went and had like a cancerous tumor removed for his jaw. Could have killed him. Kept it from the American people. We can't tell about it. And then when a courageous newspaper man goes and actually uncovers the story, he's vilified, has his career ruined, and they stepped all over him and told him that he was, told the world that this newspaper man was a liar. 20 years later, vindicated. They had to come out and actually apologize for it, but it didn't matter because it ruined the guy's life. But he uncovered the truth. So when J.D. Vance says he's never heard about this before, we have precedents. 1893, Grover Cleveland, when this happens. So where does this guy go? Like, what is going on here at the Pentagon? And who is running our federal government? We don't know. And Joe Bianchio penned a piece this morning asking some very important questions. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin must resign. And he says, more questions still. What did the Pentagon press officers know? And when did they know it? Surely they are aware of the protocol for publicly announcing medical procedures for cabinet officials. Who was in the deception? The Secretary of Defense travels with an entire operations center around him at all times. Note takers, communication experts, intelligence analysts. These people all report to the defense officials who report to other defense officials. It's hard to believe the Pentagon's press office was unaware that the big boss was in the hospital. In fact, hiding the Secretary of Defense during a tumultuous work week for the American military surely involved the collusion of multiple senior officials. That's the word I wanted to zero in on, collusion. Who knew? You mean to tell me that the press officers for the Pentagon didn't know?
Someone in the chat says maybe he went AWOL.
Maybe. Yeah. Wouldn't that be funny?
Which is a federal crime.
The Secretary of Defense goes
He's like,
AWOL.
I've had enough. I've seen too much. I can't be a part of this anymore.
Pulls a Chelsea Manning, So that's the that's the word there, collusion, though. What people in the Pentagon knew about this? Senator Tom Cotton also says that the Secretary of Defense needs to resign. Listen.
Of course, when you're the Secretary of Defense or his chief of staff or other senior department official, and you know that you're going in for surgery, even if it's minor elective surgery, you have to have contingency plans if something goes wrong. You have to have the basic sound judgment to give a call to the president or the national security advisor and say, hey, I'm going in for this surgery, or you have to have your staff call in and do that. And if your judgment is so poor on such a simple matter, what does it say about your judgment on things like the withdrawal from Afghanistan, or the support for Israel in the Middle East, or efforts to deter China from attacking Taiwan? Someone is going to have to resign over this. And right now, since Lloyd Austin has taken responsibility for it, it would appear that Lloyd Austin is the person who needs to resign, or his chief of staff, or both of them.
Yeah, or his chief of staff, or both of them. So, you have to wonder, though, you just sit back at a larger level and just think about how the deep state is operating inside the federal government right now. You have a dementia patient who's in the White House. He's literally a meat puppet. And I don't say that to be mean, but he's literally being propped up by deep state officials people who, that are part of the permanent government who are there and they're just walking him around like a Weekend at Bernie's situation. That's all he is right now. He's not running the government. You think he's the one sitting there signing off? People are coming up to him telling him, Mr. President, here's what you're going to do today. Here's what you're going to sign. You're going to sign this, which is $100 billion for Ukraine. Do you think he has any idea what he's doing? No, and this is why Democrats now are struggling and scrambling to try to find a replacement. Who are they going to put in his place?
I don't know if you remember when Obama's teleprompters went out and how bad his speech was. Could you imagine if Biden's prompters went out, like what that would be like?
Oh my God, we saw a little bit of that when he was in Vietnam. Remember? But he can't speak extemporaneously.
No. Oh yeah, when he did that booger thing.
Yeah,
That's
it was
right.
disgusting. And he can't speak extemporaneously. He used to be able to. That's the thing. Just go back and look at videos, even from a year ago. You can see the decline. The decline is real.
We have a video in the countdown timer where he's grilling Scott Ritter, and you can see how just on point he was.
Night and day difference.
Right.
Night and day difference. So
no stutter.
Yeah. Who's running this government right now, and who's running our Pentagon? Where is Lloyd Austin? Where is the Secretary of Defense? A lot of questions, and I hope that reporters get answers, and I hope the Pentagon stops stonewalling and provides those answers. We'll have more on this story. We're going to continue to follow and see what happens there. People in the chat asking, have you guys looked into the Rebel News story with David Menzies? And absolutely. So our solidarity with our friends up there in Canada at Rebel News, David Menzies, who was just arrested for being a reporter and asking questions of Christina Freeland on the street. Grabbed, thrown, and arrested by the police up in Canada for nothing. He did not assault her. He had a microphone and was asking her questions. This is what's happening right now to the press. When you see it in the United States, you see it in Canada. It's really, really troubling where
the assault that took place was actually from the police. Because, they attacked that guy. They came at him.
Yeah, they literally came at him. You're absolutely right about it. So anyway, we stand with our friends in Rebel News, and it's an absolute tyranny.
This is the template. So we're going to talk about Davos in a second and these unelected globalist leaders who will not answer questions to anyone who is not friendly, who is not basically a media outlet on their payroll. And we saw last year when reporters actually tried to talk to businessmen, world leaders, unethical money makers is I guess what we'll call them. They're tossed aside. They do not want to answer any questions that are unfriendly. And now we're going to see that journalists who are willing to ask those questions will be continuously attacked. So we're going to talk about that coming up in just a second.
Yes, the big Davos World Economic Forum preview. I can't wait. Natalie's been going through all of the panels and discussions.
This is an annual thing now.
Oh my God.
I do this story every year. This is the third year that I've done this story where I go through Davos agenda and I'm like, don't be cynical, Natalie. Just like, maybe it's well-intentioned. Maybe there's good stuff here. And then I freak out all day and I'm like,
No, I hear her from her office yelling, and I hear it. She's like, "You're not going to believe this." She's like, come to my office. And I'm looking at this panel from the World Economic Forum. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, they're doing this?
I try really hard to just not, go in with the agenda of like showing you guys crazy shit. But it's all crazy shit. So, but you decide.
They make it impossible. They make it impossible to not be cynical. What was it last year? They had one basically like how corporations should be using AI to spy on your thoughts.
Yes.
Oh, really?
They called it brain control. That's right. I didn't bring that graphic today. I should have because, that one was one of my favorites. So we're going to talk about that coming up.
Also, and also we're going to talk about these secret tunnels, these secret Jewish tunnels under New York City. Like, what the hell is happening? What the hell is happening? We live in a clown world.
Right. How do I get one? How do I get one and crawl in it and never come out?
Well, they're going to be filled up with concrete pretty soon there in New York, and it's illegal in New York. But you can join the Jewish tunnels, the Jewish tunnel system in Brooklyn. It's like, what the hell is happening here? And you might remember back in 2009, of course, there was a big series of arrests around sexual assault and human trafficking. and it would really hit the Orthodox Jewish community in Brooklyn pretty hard. Are these tunnels connected in any way to that? We will report, and you can decide. We'll talk about that in a minute.
But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Bank on Yourself, because if you study the financial products that are advertised to you, such as a Roth IRA or a 401k, you realize that those are not awesome investments. That's just a way for you to partner with the government to invest in the stock market. They say that risking your life savings in the Wall Street casino is a secure investment for the future. Yet studies show that the average American who follows that advice will outlive these retirement savings by at least 10 years. That even seems a lot to me, because the average full maturity retirement withdrawal of these is like $90,000. How are you going to live your whole retirement on $90,000 in the United States? But there is a better way. Bank on Yourself will help you grow and protect your hard-earned money. The retirement plan alternative has never had a losing year in over 160 years. It's guaranteed predictable growth and retirement income. With Bank on Yourself, your plan doesn't go backwards when the markets tumble. Your principal and growth are locked in, plus it's tax-free retirement income. You'll know what your tax rate is when you retire. It's zero under current tax law, which protects you from the coming tax tsunami. Plus, you're in control, and it's built-in inflation protection. Plus, peace of mind, because you know the minimum guaranteed value of your retirement savings on the day you plan to tap into them and at every point along the way. So, do you want guaranteed predictable annual growth, control of your money, and tax-free retirement income? Then go to bankonyourself.com/redacted, and they'll send you a free report with a proven retirement plan alternative that banks and Wall Street is desperately hoping you never hear about. So go to bankonyourself.com/redacted for your free report. Again, that's bankonyourself.com/redacted.
And we want to thanks to all of our new subscribers. We had a banner year last year. We haven't, since this is really our first week back since the new year, I wanted to say thank you to all of you, because we saw a 44% new growth in our audience last year, and broke all sorts of records.
That's just on YouTube, actually. And we doubled, or I want to say tripled our audience on Rumble.
Yeah, on Rumble as well. So just, much love to all of you guys for seeking the truth. We have no agenda here on this show other than the truth. We're not backed by billionaires. We are not backed by big pharma or any lobbying group or anything. We are just a small little operation here. So thank you guys so much for that.
I was going to say it's quite the opposite. We have the billionaires trying to keep us quiet. Like if we say something wrong on this,
I was going to say, like the community is really the only thing. The community is really the only people that do back us.
That's true.
I mean, to kick us out. I mean, I guess Rumble, I guess.
No, I mean, we've been demonetized multiple times, and blocked and banned and now suppressed. So we are, I would say now on a weekly basis, YouTube is specifically blocking and demonetizing our content on a regular basis. We're getting flagged and alerted for it all the time. So
they downrank our content for sure, depending on the content and which piece. So it's really, a lot of times we think that if you came here, you had to find it yourself, because the algorithm is not our friend to help us build an audience. So thank you for being here. And word of mouth, the old way, is really how we spread our audience. So thank you for sharing this message with your friends as well.
Yeah, because notifications don't even work. Many of you tell us that you guys turn on the bell notification to be notified when we go live.
Oh, wait, we talked about this yesterday. You don't need to do that anymore, right, David? Do you want to explain that one more time?
Yeah, just find that it's like it turns out that about 0.8% of the people who click the bell actually get notified anyway. So it's like no use even asking them to do it.
Oh, okay. So it's a waste of time.
Okay.
It's a waste.
Way to go.
All right. So that's our new marching orders. Okay. Well, let's move on. We have stuff to do. I warn you, sometimes I just want to let you know, I might say the SH word a couple times here, because that's what I think of this story. Just wanted to warn you, because sometimes people say, well, I watch with my kids. Okay, kids, mommy might say the SH word. I'm just saying. Okay.
Watch out.
You got it. All right. The theme at Davos this year is rebuilding trust. Could that be because they know that we really don't trust any of these assholes that go to Davos in the first place? I didn't warn you about that word, but yeah, I'm calling them assholes. First of all, who goes to Davos thinking that everyone thinks that this is like, it's a bad look now going to Davos. I think Russell Brand calls it like investors Coachella or something like that, globalist Coachella. It's like a place where you know that you're going to go and try and set an agenda for the world, and you are an unelected leader. This is the World Economic Forum's annual gathering of unelected leaders who plan out the future of the world based on their own economic interest. Usually it involves putting the interest of the average person in les toilettes. The annual meeting for 2024 takes place next week, January 15th through 19th. So we took a look at the agenda. And yeah, here is the theme, rebuilding trust, which made Philip laugh. And that takes a lot to make Philip laugh. What do you find funny about that, Philip? Can you just explain that little chuckle?
Oh, it's the rebuilding trust. I mean, one, you never had it. Yes. And two, that means that you're painfully aware that you don't have it and you're trying to do something about it. They should map out their own damn thoughts and have their AI track them down and figure out why it is nobody trusts them. That's what I would do.
And you know, couldn't have said it better myself.
And you know, it's funny if you think about rebuilding trust. Maybe they thought at some point when no one knew who they were, that they had trust, right? It was just this circle. It was just these friends that got together at Davos, Bill Gates and all that. No one was really aware of like the nefarious things that they were actually doing.
Yes.
Right. So in that early stages, they had trust. And now they've completely.
They had trust because they had anonymity. That's not trust.
Well, it's trust. It's trust for themselves during their luncheons.
And what's funny is like to rebuild trust, what they're going to have to do is take away our right to say we don't trust them. Like they will silence us. They're going to silence everybody on social media to rebuild our trust so that people can't, counter our narratives.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
What were you saying, Philip?
And then act surprised. I was gonna say, and then they act surprised that nobody trusts their secret cabal. I mean, like literally, like that is just not a good look, guys. It's not a good look.
It really isn't. And it seems to me a tacit admission that the world leaders have earned their loss of trust. They deserve it that we don't trust them. So I, thought, okay, if they really, again, every time I do this segment, every year I go through the Davos agenda and I'm like, don't be cynical, Natalie. Maybe there's some well-intentioned good stuff here. And then it just blows my mind at what I see. So I'm trying here. I'm trying. But if they really wanted to regain trust, they could apologize for pushing climate change measures that hurt the environment and average people more. That's one thing. Maybe they could apologize for social tracking, mass vaccination, taking away freedoms. Maybe they could apologize for selling endless, useless wars built on lies. That's how they could build up trust. But spoiler alert, they're not going to do any of that shit. They're not. They're going to go all in on more war, more climate policy, and another pandemic for a disease they don't even know about yet. This panel here, scheduled for the 17th, will blow your mind. That's not a good graphic. I apologize. I'm going to read it to you. What it says is preparing for disease X. Says the World Health Organization is warning that disease X, it's unknown, it says, could result in 20 times more fatalities than the coronavirus pandemic. So we need to be prepared. It's unknown, it's disease X, and it's 20 times more fatal, they say. Okay. Go ahead, David. What's your reaction to that?
I was going to say, I wonder if that's a slam on Elon, if they're calling it that because it's like disease Twitter, basically.
Disease X. Sounds like science fiction, but I think the 20 times more than coronavirus, like as we talked about, like, do you know anyone that died of coronavirus?
No, we know people that died with coronavirus, and even the CDC now has revised their deaths because of that.
Yeah.
So yes, that obviously, that will get your attention. But then if you look here, it says this session is linked to Partnership for Health Systems Sustainability and Resistance and the Collaborative Surveillance Initiative. Okay. So in order to, get a hold on this fatal disease X, they're going to need to have collaborative surveillance. And who is the panelist? Big Pharma is on this panelist list. I know you can't see that, and I'm sorry. And also Dr. Tedros. You see there, AstraZeneca is on the panelist list. Will that rebuild trust, do you think? I mean, they could apologize for the mistakes they made during COVID. It does not look like they're going to do that. Last year, you may recall that the Davos program was very, very heavy on giving Russia the cold shoulder to tank their economy and combat disinformation. In fact, there were panels about making Russia pay through sport. They had the IOC speaking on how they could make sure that the world knew that Russia was persona non grata through, I don't know, the economy, sport, all of that. Last year, the program even predicted, here's from 2023, predicting the Russian economy would shrink by 6% because of the actions of these Davos men. But it didn't. Take a look at what actually happened a year later. The Russian economy actually grew by 3.5% in 2023. So these Davos dudes, they could rebuild trust by apologizing for tanking Western countries while trying to tank Russia. Oops, we tanked the wrong economy. Maybe they could apologize for that. That would rebuild trust, right? You think? Crickets, guys?
I mean, absolutely. You know, again, I was just in Berlin. I was just in Germany. We were in Germany just a few days ago. And it's unbelievable to see what has happened to this economy, given what these globalists have done. What has happened to these Western economies, the largest economy in Europe, can't even put food on the table. Farmers being run out of business because of incredibly high fuel costs, skyrocketing fuel costs for energy, for electronics, for manufacturing, for textile manufacturing, for everything. So yeah, it really hurt an economy. It wasn't the Russian economy, which saw a sizable GDP growth and shored up their entire manufacturing sector. But no, Germany collapsing, Europe collapsing.
Oh, we're really going to get them. And then a year later, it's us that's hurting. Maybe they could admit that, these unelected globalists. I don't think they're going to. In fact, look at this next panel. They're preparing us for continued war in the Middle East. Now that the war in Russia is no longer in vogue, it's like securing an insecure world. Right? Okay. More war. Notice the speakers here.
Why are we so insecure? It's because of you assholes.
Well, look who is speaking here. For head of NATO, right? World Economic Forum panelists.
Oh my God.
Warmonger Chris Coons is on this panel, who just today posted a video on X featuring lies about the war in Ukraine.
Annalena Baerbock is there. She's speaking. Of course, you'll recall, she's the one who told Germans, you know, in Germany, she's like, I care more about Ukrainians than I care about my own people in Germany.
That's exactly what she said. Yes. And the woman who Philip said, I hope she has to break down her own piano to stay warm this winter, because she's saying, I don't care who is cold.
Right.
We have to send.
That's a great panel.
Yes. That panel. Well, here's a video.
Are they going to stream this? Because I gotta watch. That sounds.
I'm not sure.
They usually do, and now I don't know, because they've really tried to be more on lockdown, trying to keep reporters like us away from there, the independent media, you know, trying to keep them away now. So I don't know if they're going to quietly release this stuff this time.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll look into it, because that's what I'll be doing next week with popcorn.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like popcorn, but I'll find something.
Since when?
I don't like popcorn.
Since when? You always eat it.
It makes you so thirsty. I don't eat it anymore. Now I just bring M&Ms.
But you like it, but then you're like, I feel badly afterwards.
No, I don't eat it anymore.
When you smell
Eve
popcorn,
and I don't,
it's like Bugs Bunny floating towards the smell.
I'm always like, I'm not enjoying this, actually. So I just bring chocolate.
You're getting older.
I digress. So Chris Coons is the American on that panel about war.
Oh, good.
And I just want to point out to you that just today he posted this full of lies about the war in Ukraine, and saying that when Congress returns to session, his number one priority is to continue to send aid to Ukraine. So we know what he's going to do when he gets to Davos next week. So clearly this panel has nothing to do with the truth in war. Nothing. They're just there to prepare to capitalize on it. Will that rebuild trust? No, because they're admitting that basically everyone in Davos will just follow the U.S. agenda. Look at this panel that exists for no other reason other than to point out how the United States sets the global agenda. It's just no other country has a panel like this. It's not like what China wants, what Russia wants. It's just the United States. They're the leaders. Show up.
Who's going to be there at that panel? Is it going to be like other countries that come there and sit there like sycophants who are like, you know?
Lloyd Austin?
Yeah.
And what's so funny is the whole world's suffering because of the whole world is suffering because of us. Germany is going through what they're going through because we blew up their Nord Stream pipeline. Like, we are responsible for these people going through this stuff, and they're gonna like put us up as like, here, you want to be like more like America, here you go.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the most ridiculous. I mean, look at the description of this. Like, given the fundamental transformations in the world, how will the U.S. respond and where will it lead? Like, please tell us, America, where are you going to lead us by the nose and we'll just follow? That's a panel at the World Economic Forum is just, what does Uncle Sam want? That's weird, right?
It's like the whole panel, like
democracy.
All of the different panels, and then here's just one random panel. It's like how America
tells us what to do.
Tells us what to do. Are you going to go to that panel after lunch today? The how America tells us what to do.
Right.
Yeah, I have to go because they told me I have to go. So
I mean, you can see these sort of more populist leaders saying, "I'm not showing up to that," you know, and then maybe not. We'll see. I don't know. Will that rebuild trust even going there? Like, imagine you voted for Javier Milei or...
He's going, by the way.
To the World Economic Forum?
Yeah.
Right. Imagine you voted for him and then you watch him taking notes in a panel like this. The voter who would vote him in would be so pissed off, don't you think? Watching Giorgia Meloni taking notes, like, okay, what does the U.S. want from me?
Well, that's the frustrating part, right? When you think, okay, yeah, Giorgia Meloni in Italy, we're going to see this revolution. And then she's on the phone with Klaus Schwab. Like, come on. You know what? We've all been played. Javier Milei. Oh, we've all been played, right? That's the thing. Where do we have these leaders who are separate from this?
Who are saying, I'm not showing up to that. I'm not going to do that.
It's a big joke.
Who was the leader recently we talked about that literally just said everyone hates America? It was a Czech leader, I thought.
Or was it Orban? No.
It wasn't. Was
it Czech leader?
I think it was. I think it was a Czech leader. Anyway, maybe leaders.
So maybe there should be a panel on how the United States can restore trust.
And then they go and listen, not present.
Right. Okay. So the United States has been bullying its allies and partners and setting up military bases around the world for many, many years. How can the United States restore trust and faith in the world? How can we be looked up as a bastion of freedom?
The panel is just a bunch of random names that we don't know because they're just citizens that are speaking about it.
Well, okay. Speaking of citizens, could this globalist group rebuild trust by admitting that asking people not to use energy is asking them not to prosper, and that there is no future of climate change without affordable energy, and asking people to live with less is not the answer? Will they do that? No, they will not. They're not going to do that. Instead, take a look at this. Transforming Energy Demand says that what can companies and governments do to enable economic growth with less energy? They want you not to have heat. They want you not to have any kind of transportation or energy to get you around. It's basic. The message remains not, I mean, we've presented to you so many times, so much research that shows that when an economy prospers, then climate emissions go down. Impact on the environment goes down because technology will advance us to the point where we are no longer doing things that are harder on the earth. We've presented you with research that shows that with prosperity comes a decline in emissions, and you need access to gas and energy in order to prosper. Those things are linearly connected, but they're pretending that it's not here, pretending that we can shrink the lives of nations and solve climate problems in that way. And it's false. It's a false narrative. We've seen that over and over and over again. Instead, they want to focus not on reprogramming the agenda and creating prosperity for all. That is not a priority. Instead, they want to focus on reprogramming you. Take a look at this panel. They're calling it reskilling. This is a new word that we might see globalists use. Whatever you do for a job, you won't be able to do that as a job in the future if they have their way, because they want a powerless you. So they're going to reskill the global workplace. This could sort of make sense in terms of like, okay, certain things used to be automated and now robots do that job. So we need to reskill this population. Or more cynical view might be, we don't need farmers because we have Bill Gates mass-produced factory food, and you'll eat meat. That instead. So we'll take those farmers and we will reskill them into District 12.
Right, we
That's
will
a
keep
Hunger
them.
Games reference.
I saw people in the chat here saying like 15-minute cities. Well, they don't want you to work, right? They want you to have a universal basic income. They want you to stay at home, and they want to control you.
Yeah.
And they want you on their pharmaceuticals. They don't want you being entrepreneurial. They don't want you going out there and doing those things. So they will take away your livelihood, and they will reskill you the way that they feel is necessary.
Right. Again, I see this very Hunger Games. District 4 does textiles. District 5 does mining, right? District 12, that's how it reads to me. Again, that's me being cynical. You're free to present this in a different way to me if you think I'm being overly cynical. Will they rebuild trust? Here's another, pipe dream. By collaborating for peace, it does not seem like they want to do that either. In fact, here's a panel that is discussing a plan for a European army. Okay, here was Clayton when I screamed about this today. He goes, who runs that army? Ursula von der Leyen, president of the European Commission?
Well, I specifically said, which unelected leader is going to run the EU army? Right? Because if you didn't vote for a war, you didn't vote for your leaders to participate in this war. So what unelected globalists are going to be in charge of the EU army?
Well, that idea was floated this week by Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani. He said, if we want to be bearers of peace in the world, we need a European army. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Makes so much sense. European army.
So they're going to be the bearers of peace, and we're going to be the bearers of democracy. Sounds like a good combo.
Yeah, I mean, the European Union is just the lapdog of whatever the United States wants. The United States says sit dog, and they sit. And so now they're saying we need a European army basically to do the bidding of whatever our pimp the United States wants. More
they can
about
be their own lapdog.
Right. Yeah. More about rebuilding trust. Look at this panel on freedom of expression. It is a blatant admission here that freedom of expression, when you are free to express yourself, that causes for them disinformation and a dire environment for the press. Why the hell do we care about the press having a hard time when you are free to express yourself? So if you're free to express yourself, global power structures are threatened. So, don't worry, though, because they have New York Times panelist on here. The New York Times is going to tell you all about freedom of expression.
Yep. But I like how the description of this. I like how the description of this says, like, in the past decade, freedom of expression has declined in regions around the world, and it says emerging technologies, disinformation, and cyber censoring. So they're like basically saying, yeah, all of the stuff we told you we wanted to do last year is working. Now what? Now they're going to rebuild trust by taking that out.
Right.
Everything that we told you, everything
censoring.
Everything we planned to do has come to fruition, and now we're going to have a panel on how it all came to fruition.
Yeah, it's a very confusing description because they're pointing out freedom of expression has declined as if they don't want that and saying, and so we need to continue to censor.
You know what I think? I think a lot of these panels are bullshit. I think a lot of these panels are a front for them to just get together at lunch and hang out in the halls and have private secret meetings in the conference rooms and go up to the hotel rooms of Bill Gates.
Okay, maybe, but don't blow up my piece yet because I have a few more things to show you.
They're actively involved in these panels, but what's really happening is like the stuff behind the scenes where they're really well, I guess what I'm saying is these panels are as good as it gets. That what's happening
I have
behind.
more to show you. So
I know, but you're missing my point. What I'm saying is that the panels this is the best that they're putting their best foot forward, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Is this their best foot forward? How about this one on tackling obesity? It says that obesity is now a global epidemic. So look at the panelists that they're going to talk to. The CEO of Novo Nordisk, the maker of Ozempic. In Ozempic, we've talked about a lot, is the injectable weight loss drug that's associated with cancer in rats. and is facing no fewer than 4 lawsuits because it's so harmful to humans who've taken it. But no, this is how they think that the world should tackle obesity, with a biopharmaceutical complex, not like make the food system more healthy or, you know, get people to move more, anything like that. No. Big pharma. Okay, a few other panels worth watching. Here, they want to rebuild trust by liberating science. What does that mean? Given that we're told that science that the governments don't like is not science. We've been told that over the last 3 years of the pandemic. And the science they do like is so fast moving, they cannot explain it to plebeians like us. So do we trust them to liberate science? I don't like that terminology. What we don't know is, you know, what all of this means, because the journalists that are invited from mainstream media outlets lack curiosity when narratives about war and pandemics and tracking come up. When real journalists try to speak to these people, this is what happens. Last year, we showed you this when Japanese journalist Masako Gana confronted Klaus Schwab to try and get some answers. He showed some interest and then asked what media organization she was with, and she said independent, and he went, no, and walked away. Watch.
Chairman Schwab, I'm from Japan. May I ask you for... I'm from Japan.
Yeah.
And may I ask you for a comment?
No,
we're on our way to the next thing. We're a bit late.
I can just walk with you and then ask questions.
I think we're gonna rush actually. But thank you. Thanks very much.
Which media are you with?
I am an independent journalist from Japan.
No, thank you very much.
Yes.
No, thank you. Oh, you're independent. No.
All right, so she chases him for a little bit longer. We can stop that. And then I just want to show you a few minutes of this piece when Rebel News' Avi Yemeni confronted Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla about all the trouble with their COVID booster shots and all of the revelations that came to light at the time. And then Albert Bourla all of a sudden was an expert at cross-country skiing because he couldn't get away from this guy fast enough. Let's just watch a few seconds of this.
Mr. Bourla, can I ask you, when did you know that the vaccines didn't stop transmission? How long did you know that without saying it publicly?
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Answer that question. I mean, we now know that the vaccines didn't stop transmission, but why did you keep it secret? You said it was 100% effective.
Look at this lady in the red. She's panicked that he is anywhere, and she can't get him separated.
But we now know that the vaccines do not stop transmission. Why did you keep that secret?
Have a nice day.
I won't have a nice day until I know the answer. Why did you keep it a secret?
All right.
The best part is that goes on for minutes, because
6 minutes.
And you have to think that one of his handlers is like, we mapped out a route to get you to lunch. We think that this is the best route. Whoever that person was lost their job after that afternoon because he couldn't get away from her.
He goes in and out of several doors before he's actually able to separate himself from this guy. The story we just talked about another Rebel News reporter in Canada doing something similar. Well, that guy got attacked and arrested, right? And so is this now the template? If you have any journalist who wants to ask a sincere, curious question, will we see this happening more? Because when we see these, panelists of CNBC journalists or New York Times journalists as the moderators, they're not going to push. They lack curiosity. They will never sacrifice themselves at the altar of truth. So, we're going to have to watch what we can see and then hope that maybe a real journalist sneaks in a question every now and again.
Well, that's the sad part, is that now the mainstream media is considered the only real journalist when they're actually the least journalists. It's like, think about somebody like Tucker Carlson on Fox News. He could have walked up, hey, Tucker Carlson, Fox News. They feel obligated because a lot of people are going to see that. But now if you were to walk up, Tucker Carlson, independent journalist, we don't talk. You're a right-wing nut job. We don't talk to you. You know what I mean? It's like if you're not in that mainstream, you're considered a nut job when you're doing better journalism than the actual quote-unquote journalists.
Right, but only by establishment. And we've showed you at the end of last year the surveys that showed that the trust in the press has plummeted. So I think most people now understand that they're not getting the real truth.
Most people understand that, but the establishment loves to talk to its own, right? So I think what David is saying is that if you walk up and you're with CNBC and you have a microphone from CNBC,
Sure.
then Klaus Schwab is more inclined to speak with you. But the American people understand that these organizations are worthless and they're liars and they're propagandists and they're mouthpieces of the intelligence community and the deep
Which
state.
just makes them participants in this globalist orgy.
Right. Yeah, it's one big circle jerk.
All we can do is watch and say, well, whatever they're saying, I don't think I want that. Recall last year, Elon Musk posted on, when it was still Twitter at the time, that it seems like Davos people want to be the boss of the earth. How is this even a thing? He says, are they trying to be the boss of the earth? Maybe that's why they rebranded the conference this way this year, of rebuilding trust, because they do want to be the boss of the earth, say that a few times, boss of the earth, but they want us to trust them that they don't. They want us to look the other way while they plan to be the boss of the earth. So I will link to this program in the newsletter tomorrow. Go through it yourself. Let me know what you think, and we'll watch it next week and see what we think.
I'm ready for that. I'm ready for those panels.
Yeah.
There's always so much amazing garbage that comes out of them, and they really are like planning the future. And what's sad about these panels and what's sad about these meetings that the World Economic Forum has and the WHO has is that when they talk about these things, they come true. These things are then implemented. They have these panels and then they go back to private rooms and then they implement this stuff. Mm-hmm. They make phone calls, they get it together, and then they make us all suffer. That's what happens.
Well, I just ordered a whole box of Twinkies and a Snuggie, a pink Snuggie online, and I'm going to watch that when it comes out.
Watch Davos all week next week.
Pink.
Okay.
I'm glad you got a pink Snuggie.
I know. Why is the color relevant?
Well, I mean, pink Snuggie and Twinkies, it just sounds like an awesome combo.
He's got problems.
Okay.
He's got problems. We've got more news to get to here on...
Hit the mute button.
we got more news to get to here on your Tuesday. And thank you for all your kind super chats as well. Joshua Ryman says, Davos is nothing less than the Bilderberg coming out of the shadows. Yes, $10 super chat. Thank you for that.
Rob said that he'd give me $5 for the F word. I didn't say the F word, but I said shit and ass. And I said those things. I meant it.
Yeah. And Wanda says, Miles and Grams says hi. Thank you so much. All right, we've got more news to get to here on your Tuesday. We're going to look at these secret tunnels under New York City. What the heck is going on there, and why are construction workers trying to fill in these secret tunnels with cement, and people being arrested as a result of all these weird secret tunnels? We'll get into that story.
All right, but first we want to tell you about our friends over at Genucel, because if you want to make a resolution that's easy to keep and delivers immediately on its promise, you should take a look at Genucel Skincare. You can turn back the clock and look 5, 10, or 15 years younger. And right now, Genucel Skincare is celebrating 2024 with its New Year's sales event. You can save 70% off all of your Genucel must-haves in their popular package. Say goodbye to those fine lines, forehead wrinkles, which my daughter calls free Wi-Fi when she sees it on my forehead, sagging jawline, dark marks, skin redness, and even under eye bags, and leave them in 2023. No more free Wi-Fi on your forehead. Genucel works for women and men. It's safe for all skin types and perfect for skin of any age. Plus, with immediate effects, Genucel promises results that will make you smile, guaranteed, or 100% your money back. For a limited time, Genucel's top-selling hyaluronic acid serum is included free in almost every popular package. Enjoy maximum skin hydration for a more youthful appearance. Go to Genucel.com/redacted and enter redacted at checkout for extra savings. Every order placed is automatically upgraded to free shipping. So don't wait. Go to Genucel.com/redacted. That's Genucel.com/redacted.
A Real Dragon says, laughing my ass off, free Wi-Fi.
You want to see it?
So yeah.
How do I do it? Oh, like that.
Take camera, yeah. So
hang on. Like that. When I raise my eyebrows, it looks like free Wi-Fi signal.
And our daughter,
I have no ego
daughter's
about
like,
it.
"Hey, mommy, free Wi-Fi on your forehead."
Yeah.
So kids are good for that. Yeah.
It's real ego boosting.
Hey, I want to say this. Thanks to all of you guys. You know, we are now consistently having way more viewers on Rumble watch our live show and join us here every night, which is amazing. So, hey, Rumble, you guys are awesome. We love all of our YouTube viewers as well. You know, YouTube, the platform, though, of course, is, you know, likes to censor us on a regular basis. So there are certain stories we can't even do on this channel, and we can only do them on Rumble. But I just wanted to say, our audience now nearing like 20,000 watching us live right now on Rumble, and about 13 or 14,000 or so on YouTube watching us live right now. So anyway, much love to you guys over on Rumble. Rumble seems like it's really now starting to eclipse YouTube in a big way, and I'm very excited about that. So thank you guys for that. All right, let's talk about this. Well, if you had on your 2024 bingo card hidden Jewish tunnels under New York City, then you are winning at life because you just nailed it. This is really, I have to think, the most bizarre story I've heard in a very long time. But I think it could potentially, we don't know yet, it could really have potentially really troubling pieces of this story as they come out here. And we have a lot of questions. We have a lot of questions about this story. First, some context. What you're seeing here, notice the people in the middle of your screen who are hiding there in underground caves in New York City, which have been busted wide open and are now being filled with cement as a result of discovering these really damaging and hidden caverns underneath the city of New York. Late yesterday afternoon, a wild riot broke out inside a New York City synagogue in Brooklyn. Police had to be called in. Why? Look at these secret, I mean, they're coming out of the ground. And a riot breaks out as a result of it. I mean, construction workers showed up. This is when the riot started. So construction workers showed up and started trying to pour cement into these hidden tunnel systems. And that these Orthodox Jewish members had built. It's illegal. And you're not allowed to live underneath. Look at that police officer. He holding up a taser. He's like, you guys got to get back. They're trying to fight the fact that they're now going to uncover what's perhaps in these tunnels. Is it just people? Is it just they're using it to traverse the area?
I was wondering if it was like, because like, I don't know if you know this, but in a lot of those Jewish communities, they will tie a rope from one house to the other because they're not allowed to leave their house on the Sabbath. But they're thinking as if the rope is attached, it's not technically leaving their house because it's still part of it. So maybe they were trying to attach these tunnels so that it was like it was still connected to their home so they could leave on the Sabbath.
Maybe that's, and if that's what they're saying. Also, the Daily Mail was saying, well, no, they built these tunnels so they could sneak into the synagogue during COVID lockdowns. But that doesn't make any sense because we now know that these tunnels were constructed about 6 months ago. So it has nothing to do with COVID, has nothing to do with lockdowns, trying to sneak into a synagogue because you're that devout. Like, that's how the Daily Mail was trying to portray the story. They're so devout that they just built tunnels. They had to get to the synagogue. They had to get there.
It's pretty terrifying when how many stories did we see last year of buildings collapsing,
right?
Apartment buildings collapsing. Like, I don't think that's safe.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's safe either. But we do know, well, I mean, there's so many things we don't know right now. Why were they building these tunnels? The dispute. So, okay, the New York City Police Department was called in because these construction workers showed up. Like, who called the construction workers? That's what I'd like to know. Number one, who called the construction workers to show up in the first place? And were they filling in cement on the streets? Because on the streets, you could actually see some of the caves. You could actually see some of the tunnels from the streets. So is the city like trying to do some routine maintenance when they uncovered this? Like, what the hell is going on here? So then as you make those yeah, well, we got the videos here.
Videos of people walking on the sidewalks of New York, and you can see holes and see down into what appears to be tunnels.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And then, of course, you see the individuals coming out of the holes in the ground out on the streets under hidden entranceways that were being hidden by newspaper holders, you know, where you get the free daily circular or whatever. So they're sliding them out of the way over a grate that has a hole cut in it, and they're climbing down into the holes. There you go. Look at that. It's an example of one of them. It's hidden behind this like newspaper bin that's there. It's insane. It's really bizarre. And then, so members of the Chabad Lubavitch have been digging tunnels under the synagogue at 770 Eastern Parkway in the Crown Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn, and they've been doing this for many, many months. Now, the website forward.com is coming forward and reporting that it was designed to reach an abandoned woman's mikveh, or ritual baths. Now, this is according to forward.com. The website said the tunnel had been dug to expand the synagogue, although it was unclear how they would actually do that by expanding the synagogue under the ground. The tunnels were discovered back in December, and then the synagogue's leaders called in a structural engineer then to assess the damage of it. And then the cement mixers arrived to try to fill in these tunnels, and then that's when a lot of these young Orthodox Jewish men reacted, started ripping away the wooden walls. And then when they started ripping away the wooden walls, you started to discover some really troubling things behind the walls. We take a look at some of the, well, as you're seeing the footage here, but what's behind the walls is really bizarre. Like this high chair, like children's high chairs in back in these rooms, these soiled children's mattresses.
Oh.
A lot of people, so again, we have a lot of questions. We don't know, why are there children's mattresses hidden in these tunnels? Soiled children's mattresses. Why are there children's high chairs in these tunnels? We don't know. We sure would like answers, though, and I hope there's an investigation. Vice News, though, many years ago did an investigation, and this goes back, so when we talk about this, these child rape assembly lines, as the Vice News article had covered this back in 20, let's see the byline on that, 2013, the child rape assembly line. And a rabbi at the time walked in on one of these bathhouses and saw the absolute unbelievable, disgusting, horrible stuff that was happening to these children in these bathhouses, and blew the lid on it. And of course, then there was a number of arrests in Brooklyn and a number of arrests throughout New Jersey. So I don't know if you guys remember the corruption and the arrests that happened in New Jersey, but it also swept into Brooklyn. So here's a news report from 2009, just to light a fire in your brain. And again, I don't know that these tunnels now today are in any way related to that. But when you find children's mattresses and you find high chairs, one has to wonder. Here's the news report from 2009. Take a look.
These were arrests on a massive scale. Amongst those taken into custody by the FBI were city mayors, politicians and religious leaders. The authorities needed buses to cope with the sheer scale of the operation.
New Jersey's corruption problem is one of the worst, if not the worst, in the nation. Corruption is not only pervasive, it has become ingrained in New Jersey's political culture.
It's thought that religious charities controlled by prominent rabbis were used to launder cash. The arrests were part of a 10-year operation that uncovered money laundering on an international scale, as well as corruption and the sale of human organs in the US, Switzerland and Israel.
The sale of human organs. The sale of human organs, people. That was a France 24 piece, and I remember it clearly because it was all over New Jersey news when that happened. The sale of human organs.
You know what one difference about that
the
is?
FBI arrested them for that. Like, this isn't like fantasy. They were arrested as a result of that. And she tags that. I mean, she's talking about money laundering, the other thing, and the sale of children's human organs. Go ahead, David.
I was just going to say, one difference of that time right there, we had real journalists back then. We had real journalists exposing that kind of stuff. Could you imagine that probably wouldn't happen today if that was going on?
No, and even actually,
it probably is.
Actually, CNN separately did a report on what was happening specifically on the Brooklyn piece of this. Again, this is where the tunnels were discovered. This is where the tunnels were discovered. And so it's a very insular community there. So to get like outside reporting in here is very, very difficult in this community. But CNN, this again, a report from that exact same time talking about this corruption and what was going on in these bathhouses. Listen.
In this Brooklyn enclave, strict rules dictate just about everything the men and women of this Hasidic Jewish community do. It is home to a sect called the Satmars, who are known for being closed off to outsiders. That's why the conviction of a respected member, 54-year-old Nehemiah Weberman, is seen as so significant among sex abuse victims. He was accused of sexually abusing a young girl for over 3 years and was found guilty on 59 counts against him.
I look at this as a new era for the Jewish religious community.
Weberman was hired as a counselor by the girl's parents when she began challenging strict Satmar rules at the age of 12. He denied any abuse. His support from the community was so strong, a fundraiser was held for him that was met with protests. The Brooklyn district attorney charged 4 men in June with trying to bribe the victim, who is now 18, to keep quiet with $500,000. They've pled not guilty. The district attorney praised the woman for her courage in coming forward. This trial also went beyond sex abuse allegations, and it exposed practices of an insular community known for its secrecy. And among them is the use of so-called modesty councils.
It's just kind of common knowledge in the community that these squads exist. You hear about them from when you're very little. They're touted as a means to get people to behave, like you better behave or the Vad Hatznius will come after you. So we all know that they're there. In fact, they almost attain a sort of mystique and a just sort of communal fear.
26-year-old Deborah Feldman grew up in the Satmar community, but broke out as a young adult and wrote the book Unorthodox, a memoir about growing up in Williamsburg.
Ostensibly, what modesty squads are looking for is forbidden music, forbidden books, forbidden magazines, forbidden internet access devices like computers or smartphones. They're looking maybe for love letters or for photographs.
Feldman hopes the verdict will prompt others to speak out about abuse without fear of retaliation. Others in the community remain convinced Weberman is not guilty, and his lawyer plans to appeal.
So again, what's the connection here? There's a long history in this community of this type of abuse. And then when you see soiled children's mattresses and high chairs in these tunnels, and you have a history of this type of abuse and neglect, we would like to know more about it. That's what we're asking here. So hopefully we will get some answers. And now with these 11 arrests of these individuals who were in these tunnels in New York City, hidden in these tunnels, and they were arrested by the NYPD, maybe we will learn something about it. We hope.
Yes. Has it occurred to you to ask this question? Why now do we get this story when the Hasidic community is being so vocal against the anti-Zionist movement, or they are anti-Zionists? So is it convenient timing that they are anti-Zionists and we get this now, right? I'm just asking.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we don't have the answers. I think, there's no coincidences, right? There's absolutely no coincidences at all. And so it's interesting. I mean, we know we know this community, and we know what has happened here with sexual abuse and the sale of organs. And, you can look it up on the FBI's freaking website and see what has happened here with these individuals. So I don't know. Philip, go ahead.
Well, it's something that Lionel Nation said yesterday when he was on the show that really stuck with me, and that was if you're seeing it, if you have the documents, if you have the evidence, it's because they want you to. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, looking at it in that lens, that's a really good question. Emily. Why do we know this? Why?
And specifically why now, when there's a growing anti-Zionist movement and the Hasidic Jews are large part of it, why are we getting this now?
It is interesting. It is also, we should point out, we don't know what has happened in those tunnels. There's we have images of baby high chairs, and we have soiled children's mattresses. But do we know anything beyond that? We don't. We don't know. We don't. And so hopefully we'll get some answers, and it'll be interesting to answer that question. And then actually what's going on with these tunnels. Very interesting. Let us know what you think about this in the comments below.
All right. Well, coming up, we're going to talk about how Dr. Fauci just really doesn't remember the pandemic or what happened before it. He testified to Congress. He said, I don't recall over 100 times. That's interesting, right? Because if I asked you what you did during the pandemic or how you prepped for it or what it was like for you or what you thought, I'm pretty sure you would recall. But he just doesn't.
Suddenly he can't remember.
Wasn't an important time in his life.
He consulted with Ollie North, maybe as his, hey, how do I do this? Well, here's all you got to do.
I don't recall.
Yeah, we're going to look at his testimony and what we did and did not learn in just a second. But first.
Look, I don't know if have you guys been paying attention to gold prices? Holy smokes.
They're dancing a jig.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, when you have the BRICS economies, of course, buying up as much gold as they can get their hands on in precious metals right now, and they're building their economies. A new report out showing that in 2023, perhaps the singular most important event was the emergence of the BRICS economies and building an economy and a currency around precious metals and gold, precious metals, gold and silver. And now you're seeing what's happening with the US dollar. You're seeing what's happening with inflation. You're seeing that we now have $34 trillion in debt. $34 trillion in debt, if you can believe that. Unbelievable. And our friends over at Lear Capital can actually help you get set up and start to buy gold and silver, buy precious metals as a part of your portfolio. That's something that Natalie and I are big proponents of. We invest in real estate and we invest in gold and silver, precious metals in our portfolio because it's so important to have a portion of your savings outside of the US dollar. Last year was terrible for most investors. 2024 could be even worse if we head into a recession here over the next few weeks. We're waiting on numbers to see where we head. Very, very important. If you're interested in investing in gold and silver, our friends at Lear Capital will help you get started purchasing precious metals today or converting part of your IRA or your old 401k that's just been sitting there doing nothing. If you left a company a few years ago and you've just got a 401k that's still sitting there, and most people just keep it and they don't do anything with it. When I left my old company years ago, I had it in an IRA and it just sat there for years doing nothing. Well, you can actually convert it to a gold and silver IRA. So you can actually self-direct it, not pay Wall Street money. You can actually invest it yourself in precious metals. Go to LearRedacted.com today. That's their website. And you can get up to $15,000 in free bonus metals with a qualified purchase. And also, if you just want to give them a call, they love talking to our viewers on the phone. So they have an 800 number. Give them a call and tell them Redacted sent you over here. Go to 1-800-613-3557 for your free gold guide. Again, call their 800 number, 1-800-613-3557, or go to the website, LearRedacted.com.
All right. I am so cold. My nose is it's just frozen. So if I freeze up,
I'm still cold.
Really
People are asking how cold was it? Our friend Mike Krupa, who's journalist up in Poland, he saw that I was in Berlin, and he said, "Oh, you should come over to Warsaw and have a beer." And I said, "Oh my God, man, it was so cold." He said, "Tell me about it." He said it's Die Hard 2 weather right now. If you know the Die Hard movies, it's like Die Hard 2. It's so freaking cold. It's so hard to stay warm.
Feel
right
my
now.
nose. Okay.
She's right.
You got a fire burning right behind you. Turn around and
I know. Put your hands by the fire over here.
I just went and grabbed one of Clayton's coats that was over on Southern. I'm like, my toes. I feel like I can break them off like icicles.
I'll go get you a blanket.
I could see you in the monitor, and I thought you were starting to fold laundry.
Oh,
Clayton was talking. I was like, "Oh, what is she doing?"
No, I was like, "Where is there a blanket around here or something?" So I saw an
you
old
do that.
coat.
I'm going to go get you my Snuggie. I'll go get my University of Pittsburgh Snuggie.
Okay. Right? Meanwhile, we will talk about this. Well, Dr. Anthony Fauci remembers very little about the pandemic. He just can't recall. That's funny, right? You would think it would be like a marquee time in his life that he would recall what he did that led to the pandemic, leading up to preparing for the pandemic, during the pandemic. No, he just can't recall. He testified in a closed-door session with Congress on Monday and reportedly answered, "I don't recall" or "I don't remember" over 100 times. Interestingly enough, he was accompanied by 2 personal lawyers and 2 government lawyers. That means that those are taxpayer-funded lawyers. So you and I are paying for his legal defense for him to lie to us.
And his salary.
Probably his retirement income. He's retired now. He's no longer head of the NIH. So yeah, we'll be paying his pension, I'm sure. But it's interesting, right? Because we're we're asking our elected leaders who we pay to ask this guy if he lied to us, but we pay his legal defense to get the answers. That's weird, right? Whenever anybody has a government lawyer, I'm like, wait, why are we defending this person, right? So this was what the U.S. House of Representatives Senate Select Subcommittee, no, not Senate, House of Representatives, Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic. It was a closed door hearing. I don't know why that is. I don't like it. But all we know from it comes from tweets or X's. So they told us we are supposed to get a publicized hearing soon, but for now we just have the X posts saying that today he testified and it uncovered drastic and systemic failures in America's public health system. That's a big no-duh, right? Well, let's go through the thread. See, they say he profusely defended his previous testimony where he stated that NIH does not fund gain-of-function research in Wuhan. But today, he repeatedly played semantics with the definition of gain-of-function in an attempt to avoid conceding that the NIH funded this dangerous research. We've seen him do this many times when it's like, how do you define that, right? How we define gain-of-function is just, did you F around with stuff in a lab to manipulate things that may be dangerous for people? That's literally the Wikipedia definition. Did you F around and find out, right? And so he is like, well, I don't know. They say he testified that he signed off, though, on every foreign and domestic NIAID grant without reviewing the proposal. So that's an interesting point, because how many times have we found, so many cases of the NIH funding gain-of-function research, including in Boston in 2020, before the pandemic supposedly hit American shores. We've never actually seen those documents where Fauci just looked at something and said, oh yeah, that's good, let's do that, and signed off on it, right? We just don't see that. So anytime we saw things the NIH were doing, we could always sort of say, well, did he personally know about that? Do we know that he did? Well, here at least he's admitting that he knew about every grant given. And now the committee says they know that he knew. Remember this in 2020 when the pandemic was in full swing? We showed you this study approved by the NIH, which Fauci now admits he knew about these types of things. This was approved to study the Omicron strain in 2020, March of 2020. There wasn't even an Omicron strain in March of 2020. So why was that? If he's admitting that he had eyes on all foreign and domestic grants and proposals, he must have known this. So in that case, if he's saying he knew about all proposals, and we've shown you more than just this, many gain-of-function projects happening all over the world with NIH participation from the United States, then he never should have testified like this almost 3 years ago now to Congress.
Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Do they fund Dr. Barrick?
We do not fund.
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain-of-function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain-of-function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina.
Okay, he months later would go on again against Senator Paul and say, you do not know what you are talking about. He continued to insist that he knew nothing about gain-of-function research, so much so that Senator Paul last year asked the Justice Department to look into this lie, given it is a crime to lie to Congress. It's a federal crime. But so far, the Justice Department hasn't gotten around to that, or has not at least told us that they are going to. Maybe they'll get to it. I don't know. More about Monday's testimony. The Senate also said this, that there was a 2020 email previously released by this committee proving that Dr. Fauci was aware of a dangerous gain-of-function research occurring in China. And he backtracked by arguing he should not have stated that as fact. I'm a little unclear about which pronouns are referring to which part of it, but okay, hopefully we get some clarity on that. And he was unable to confirm if there had been any mechanisms to conduct oversight on the foreign projects that they fund, which that's great, right? Let's just sign off on things, but if they go awry, we have no way to know or track. Like if you accidentally create a corona
and then take it to the Wuhan lab and then fund it.
Like we don't know how to keep an eye on that.
Like when you have these bio labs in Ukraine, 46 bioweapons labs in Ukraine, is there any kind of oversight for these things at all?
Nope.
I don't know.
We don't need it. We don't want it.
Not gonna work here anymore.
We never thought that was important.
People are asking.
It's also a bit troubling that the time to say "I don't know" was originally like way back when they asked him is gain of function research being done. He should have said "I don't know," not absolutely not, and then now come out and say, "Well, I don't know."
Yeah,
I didn't really know. I mean, it's "I don't know" is a very legitimate answer to something. If you don't know, you don't say speak. And I think that's what they mean by he should not have stated as fact.
Yes. And so now he's saying, I mean, none of these points here, he seems to be saying, I don't recall. But when they asked, well, I'm sure they asked, well, what about this study that we now know that NIH was involved in? What about this? What about this? And he can say, I knew everything, but I don't recall. Okay, because he's advanced age, because he can say that. Well, of course he can say that, right? And again, my beef with this is that he's got taxpayer-funded lawyers. So we're paying for his lawyers to help him continue to lie to us. So our representatives are pushing him on whether or not he lied to us, but we're also on the other side of the table as taxpayers helping him have impunity for these lies. I don't think that's a great system, right? They say that he is going to testify publicly, so we'll actually see this. I don't recall. I mean, we went over his deposition last year in the case where the attorneys general of Missouri and Louisiana had deposed him about censoring information on the internet. And he said, I don't recall, all over that deposition. So this is his march. This is what he does. This is how he handles those things, supposedly because we've given him good lawyers as taxpayers. But he will, in fact, then tomorrow, Wednesday, the 10th of January, he will testify about the Nature document, that paper that basically said, oh, no, COVID did not come from a lab. We're pretty sure about that. Case closed, open and shut case. We know that Dr. Fauci and his colleagues had input on that paper and, in fact, commissioned it and asked for those conclusions in order to divert attention from gain of function research. We know that now. Congress will now ask him about his participation in that. And presumably, those lawyers we bought him will tell him to say, I don't recall, over and over and over again. But that's at least there's still news about this. At least there's still someone holding his feet to the fire that needs to have been done a long time ago.
Yeah, why is he not in prison? I mean, why is he not behind bars? How is he able to still just enjoy his afternoons and go to Washington Nationals games?
No, he's still a celebrity. There was a clip that was trending on The View, was just defending him as a national hero still just this week or last week since the holiday break, and saying, you shouldn't be going after Dr. Fauci. That's bad faith. You should only listen to us when we tell you about getting booster after booster after booster. And you should, read the sources, which it seems they are unwilling to do, because I've looked for the sources that prove that the, way that health officials handled the pandemic was the right way to go about it. And I haven't found it. So I wonder what they're saying.
Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments below. We've got more news that we will be following this week for you. We've got some amazing guests lined up. Whitney Webb is going to be joining us here this week to talk about some bombshell new CBDC information. Really fascinating. We're also going to be looking more closely at the World Economic Forum, keeping our eyes on Davos, as most of the people in the World Economic Forum, of course, have also been to Epstein Island. So that's your World Economic Forum in Davos, Epstein Island. It's the collusion that keeps on giving. Bill Clinton and Richard Branson, Al Gore, Bill Gates, all of them been to Epstein Island. And we want to say thank you for you guys for subscribing to our daily newsletter. Again, it's totally free. We would love for you to subscribe. It's delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning over your cup of coffee. We usually try to publish it at about 7 a.m. Eastern time. Natalie does a lot of the great writing of it, and we do a lot of formatting together. You can read it in about 5 to 10 minutes, and we try to cover about 4 or 5 of the big stories of the day that the mainstream media ignores. By the way, Gmail has labeled our newsletter as dangerous, so when you sign up, just go to redacted.inc. You'll receive a welcome email from me, Clayton, at redacted.inc. That's my email, and it might wind up in your dangerous folder. Let me know if you guys sign up. Does Gmail label it dangerous? We have had a lot of people tell us. So it might wind up in your spam. It might wind up in your junk folder. Just drag it over to your inbox, and then tomorrow morning you'll receive the newsletter on Wednesday morning. So redacted.inc, not .com. It's redacted.inc is how to sign up for the free newsletter. Well, hey, it's been great to be back.
Yeah.
How's the Snuggie? Is it warm? This was my University of Pittsburgh Snuggie.
Mm-hmm.
Does it feel nice and warm on you?
Yeah, okay.
It's a little thin. It's not as...
Well, we're done here, so I'm going to go put on 5 layers of clothes. It's just really cold. So, all right, I'm going to go do that. You go do what you need to do. Join us back here tomorrow. You know where to find us. Same time, same place. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Thanks for joining tonight.